right, Dragonac to the left. I formation, Cox is deep. Lucas fakes and he rolls to the right. He has Smith open at the 40. Smith is loose at the 35. He cuts to the left at the 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Indiana touchdown. So it's 4th and 7. And punt formation for the University of Delaware. Perhaps the game has changed, hopefully, for Indiana after that touchdown pass play. Lee Emmons to punt. Clark and Ruffner back to receive. Indiana looks like they're going to put the rush on. Pass from center is a good one. Kick is blocked. Blocked by Olsen. Blocked by Olsen and recovered by Indiana at the 31-yard line. So the Indians 2nd and 10 at the 21. And Blucas has some key calls to make on that gridiron. Does he go to the air again? Does he go on the rollout? Will he use Cox? These are the decisions that junior quarterback Wally Blucas is deliberating as he makes his call. Smith comes far to the right. Klein gives him one-on-one coverage. Dragonac to the left. 2 setbacks, not in the eye. Back to throw. The draw to McCracken. He has a hole. He's across the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Knocked out at the 2. They're in tight. The Delaware defense is tight. I formation. Lucas gives to Cox deep into the... No, he keeps the ball and he rolls. He's at the 5. He cuts. He's in for the score. Indiana sends one man back. Barry Ruffner. Emmons to kick, standing at the 33. Indiana blocked one kick, and would they love to get another one. Ted Olson looking to charge. He was the one that did it the first time. There's the pass from center. Kicking quickly. Blocked by Ted Olson again. Rolling, and it's going to be Indiana's ball at the 26-yard line. Ted Olson did it again for Indiana University. It's short of a first down, so it's 4th down and 1, and Tate will attempt the field goal. Here's the whole ball game right here from the 22. It'll be a 32-yard attempt. Ball's on the tee. Kick is up. It looks good. It is good. It is good.
Hello, viewers and distinguished panel. Thanks for being here today. I want to start off this panel from the 1968 Boardwalk Bowl game by thanking WIUP TV, Kelly and Chris and your staff. Really appreciate your support. My name is Bob Strouse, and I was the center on the 1968 Boardwalk Bowl football team. It's an honor to have the opportunity to introduce the members of our panel today, our distinguished panel. We have head coach Chuck Klausing, and we have one of our defensive coaches, Ed Receski. And we also have one of our team captains and a member of the IUP Sports Hall of Fame, Bob Tate, and another member of the IUP Sports Hall of Fame, Jerry Clark. Please bear with me as I give a little background leading up to today's event. In September of 2013, the IUP Athletic Office found the film of the 1st and 4th quarters of the Boardwalk Bowl game. 45 years after the game, we finally found video. From that discovery, Jerry Clark, Bob Tate, and myself, we started to search for the 2nd and 3rd quarters. Assisted greatly by Wally Stapleton of the IUP Fund Development Office, we were able to locate a Delaware player by the name of Sam Brickley, who, by the way, caught the pass on our 11-yard line during Delaware's last drive in the 4th quarter. But Sam provided us a DVD with the last 6 minutes of the 2nd quarter and all of the 3rd quarter. With those resources, we were able to create a DVD of the game with the exception of 9.5 minutes of the 2nd quarter, and we overlaid that video with ABC TV audio broadcast provided by Dan Cox's family. Now, it's also interesting to note that we received WDAD audio files from Ray Goss, and as we put together a final product, we'll also be incorporating those audio files. And before we move forward with some questions and answers specific to the Boardwalk Bowl, we want to get comments from then Athletic Director Chuck Klausing and Coach Ed Receski about the elevation of IUP university status to university status in 1966 and how attaining the university status affected the IUP athletic programs. Jerry Clark will now proceed with specific questions.
Thanks, Bob. As Bob mentioned, our main focus today is the Boardwalk Bowl. But we also want to spend some time on the '68 season and the events leading up to the Boardwalk Bowl. So getting started with the first question for both Coach Receski and Coach Klausing is, again, getting back to the university status question. At the start of the 1966 football season, IUP was the only school in the state college system with university status. Why did our university status in 1966 affect our membership in the PSAC?
I feel that we were kicked out of the conference, and I think they were very jealous of us and were afraid that having university status gave us a great advantage.
Coach Receski?
I think what Chuck said is correct. I think you have to understand that the schools in the state system had all been looked upon as being the same, and this took place over a number of years. This just didn't happen in '66 and '67. But a previous president by the name of Dr. Pratt had pushed for the university, pushed for IUP to get university status. And we had a very good friend over in Katanning by the name of Dr. Peckin, who took this to the state legislature. And through some hard work on his part and a little bit of a miracle, he got the university status for IUP. Well, none of the other schools were given university status. All the schools looked upon us as getting something that they wanted that they could not get. As a result, they didn't feel that they could compete against us. So they sort of pushed us out of the state sports program, and they forced us to go and schedule games with Northwood, with Ball State, with Norfolk State, schools all over where we could get a game. But this was their way of kind of, I don't want to say getting back at us, but letting us know that they were not happy because of what happened. And for years, that has stayed with the university. It kind of lessened here the last 4 or 5 years when all the schools in the system were given university status.
One follow-up question to that. Did it affect all the other sports in addition to football? So no one could compete for a PSAC championship in basketball or track and field or baseball? So there was no PSAC championships available to IUP at that time then? Is that correct?
I'm not saying that there weren't any PSAC championships available for IUP in some of the other sports. They made it difficult on football and basketball based on the fact that they either knew or they had an idea of the number of grant in aids or scholarships, whatever you want to call them, that we could give now that we were a university.
Okay, great. Next question. Besides that competition, it seems like with PSAC and IUP and university status, I also recall that there was competition between the NCAA and their small college division and the NAIA. At that time, we were the NAIA. We competed in a lot of sports for NAIA, but we also, it seemed like, was the NCAA also trying to get us to enroll at that point?
The NCAA, it was more difficult to get into a basketball playoff, baseball playoff, and even football playoff. And we were fortunate that we were recognized to have a good football team, and that's why we were extended an invitation to the Boardwalk Bowl.
Okay.
At this time in the school's development, we had a number of individuals, especially one individual here, was on the NAIA committee. And this gentleman did a heck of a job enabling IUP's other sports, not football, other sports, to get recognition through the NAIA, especially our basketball program. Our basketball program every year competed in that NAIA program, and as many of you remember, they used to go to Kansas City. That was the big thing, to make the NAIA playoffs in Kansas City. And we had some very successful teams in that program. The NCAA made it more difficult for our basketball teams and some of our other sports than what they did for football to get into a program or to get into a playoff game. So the football usually stuck with the NCAA, the basketball and the other sports, and for a long time went with the NAIA.
Great. Well, one more question about the PSAC. What changed that enabled us to get back in the PSAC? I think it was like 1971 or 72 we got back in PSAC, and what changed between the, say, college system and IUP that they accepted us back into the PSAC?
Well, once the other schools got university status,
Okay.
then it was easy.
Okay, it was a natural progression at that point then to get
Yes.
back into the PSAC.
What you have to understand is that during the time that most of this was taking place, we had a president by the name of Dr. Pratt, who was one tremendous president who had a very definitive vision for IUP. And he knew where he wanted this university to go. And he was, I don't want to use the word hell-bent, but he was determined where he was going to get this school. He was on his way to getting us there when he was struck with a health misfortune. And we brought in another president who was a tremendous person academically, who did not have the desires along the athletic end of it to proceed, because he felt that it would take away the sports program, if we pushed it too hard, would take away from the academic end of it. And this president toned things down, put his tomahawk away, and went to the state system. And that's basically how we ended up back there. There's a few other things involved, but that's basically how we ended up back there.
Great. Well, let's go into the beginning of the '68 season. The '67 team had a record of 9-1 entering the '68 season. The defense had 11 players that were considered starters at one point or another in '67. We lost one linebacker, one defensive tackle, one defensive back. Coach Receski, with that group coming back, what were your expectations on that returning group?
Let me say that we had the highest of expectations from that group. First of all, we were dealing with quality individuals, quality men who also had some good leadership for the younger boys, because we had a number of transfers in there. And they all worked together and wanted to succeed, and they were willing to work. It was a little different time then than what it is now. If you talk to some of the older players, you will know that's a little different time. We did things in training that I'll tell you right now they'd probably haul me to jail for. But those were different times. We had the boys who adapted to it. They wanted it, and we had the expectations that we were going to get it. And they worked with us, and we had the coaching staff, and the organization was given to us by Coach Klausing that set the stage for the '68 season.
Well, I have one question on defensively, and from '67 to '68, dealing with Bob Tate. When you look at '67, Bob Tate's on all fours as a middle guard, and Duke is a linebacker. When you look at the '68 season, Bob is off the ground, he's a linebacker, and Duke is on all fours as a middle guard. What was the reason for that change between those two positions and those two players?
Well, like any other program, you evaluate what you're working with, okay? You got to understand, when we put Bobby Tate down on all fours at the middle guard, we had to look to find him. And he had to look to find out where he was going.
Well, listen,
No,
I want to answer this question.
Hey, well, I'm just kidding.
I know.
I'm
Do you
just kidding.
know what the reason was?
Yeah.
I was taller than Duke. I could see over the line, and he couldn't. So Duke was down on all fours, and I was up.
There were two reasons for it. And the reasons were, number one, Duke was a little quicker in his movements. And with Chuck Klausing's defensive philosophy, we went into these games knowing that we were going to put on, on the defense a lot of movements. And we wanted the linemen to be able to move and move quickly, and the linebackers to pick up what was coming through. And we put this all together, and we figured that Duke was the quicker of the two people, and we put Duke down, we put Bobby up. As far as we were concerned, both guys could play either position and do a heck of a job with it. But the speed and the quickness is what we looked at when we made this decision, because our whole defense centered around the 50 defense with the A, the B, the C, and the different stunts that we had with it. These were tremendous guys. They were hard guys, but they weren't real big guys. And everything was based on quickness.
Very good.
Bobby, don't.
No, that's
don't.
I remember.
Yeah.
But again, I was taller too.
Yeah.
Man.
Coach Klausing, on offense, you had 8 starters returning and 4 additional lettermen returning. I'd ask you the same question we asked Coach Receski about the defense in regards to the offense and special teams. What was your expectations or thoughts about the offense you had coming back in the '68 season?
Well, there were high expectations. You know, our quarterback was experienced. We had a pro-style gifted wide receiver in Dave Smith, and we wanted to get the ball to him. And so we had high expectations, and we felt very fortunate to have the personnel that we had coming back.
Yeah, Danny Cox coming back too, I think, at running back.
Yes, very good running back. And when a year later, I think Larry Monsilovich came up, and we were able to do some switching to take advantage of him.
Right. Well, I can recall that offensive line with Bob Strouse at center, Pujo at guard, Proquet at tackle. I mean, that's a nice basis to run your offense off, realizing you have those kind of guys up front.
Well, we were very high in our expectations.
Good. Well, again, Coach Klausing, in regards to personnel, we all played '66 through '68, and we can all remember, as Coach Receski referred to earlier, about transfers coming in. I mean, we had people like Dave Smith transferred from Waynesburg. They got Bobby Pastine, Mike Priest, Skip Rosso. I'm sorry. What was it in that era that enabled you to find quality transfers? I mean, what was the environment like at that point in time, having guys transfer in or finding transfers?
Contacts were the big thing. Having been at West Point, you know, I had contacts with people all over the country, and we got 2 or 3 players from West Point, but from several other schools. So
Yeah, I remember Ed Undra, who was the defensive end,
yes,
came from West Point.
Right.
yes.
Bruce Leonetti?
Bruce
So,
Leonetti.
Yeah.
The contacts were a great advantage to us.
Great, great. Coach Receski, a little bit about you on a personal basis. How did you become associated with the IUP coaching staff?
What you have to understand is, of course, I was originally from Indiana. I was a dumb farmer from out by Ernest, okay? And I went away to school. I taught a couple years down in the Philadelphia area. Then I moved back to Blairsville. The first week I was back there, I got a call from a gentleman by the name of Bernie Ganley, who ended up being my boss a few years later. But he called me and he said he and Owen Darty wanted to meet me in his office. So, of course, I came up and I met with them. And it so happened that, again, Dr. Pratt was the president. And we talked a little bit with Dr. Pratt. And the coach then was a gentleman by the name of Chuck Bills, who had a real different philosophy on coaching, a keen philosophy, and a successful philosophy. But he didn't spend too much time here, and he happened to be away at the time. So they hired me without him even knowing I was coming on the staff. Because he would leave right after spring ball, and then he would return in about August the 15th. But Doc, Bernie Ganley, and Dr. Pratt are the ones who hired me and put me on the staff. That's how I got there.
Well, continuing that theme about coaching staffs, Coach Klausing, when you came to IUP, how did you assemble your coaching staff when you first came to IUP?
Well, I observed what the good job that the part-time coaches were doing, and I was on the lookout for any assistant we could pick up. It wasn't easy because there
pay
wasn't
wasn't
many openings. So we did a great job of in-service training, and we worked real hard in developing a staff.
And how did you become the head coach at IUP? How did that come to be?
Well, it's funny. I was an applicant for the head coaching job in Long Island, New York, in the Merchant Marine Academy, and there were 3 people in the final interview, and I was to be second, and the first guy was already in there, and the third guy was sitting next to me was Sam Ritigliano, who was a high school coach in Long Island at the time and then became a great pro coach. And I said, Sam, who's the other guy in there? He says, well, I have ways to find out. I'll let you know. But the first guy was a guy that got hired, and that was Chuck Mills, the coach here at IUP. And Sam called me, and he said, Chuck, a guy by the name of Chuck Mills from Indiana State College got the job. And I go, whoopee. He said, why are you happy? I said, because it opened a job that I'd like to have, and I was going to go after the Indiana State College job. And the head coach at West Point offered me the coordinator's job to stay, but I wanted to leave, and I get an interview for noontime, we'll say on a Monday morning, and I tell the head coach I'd like to leave and go over. He said, you have a meeting with your defensive staff at 3:30. If you can go over to Indiana and get back for 3:30, you can go. And I had a friend who was a Army pilot by the name of Tony Bellata. And Tony said, Chuck, we'll fly out of here at 6 in the morning. I'll put Army coveralls on you, and you have to learn to salute. And he said, but we'll go and get an Army plane, and we'll fly over to Stewart Field in Indiana, PA. And he flew me over, and they had somebody with a car took me in, and we had a noontime appointment for about an hour or so, and then I flew back so I could make practice that afternoon. So Tony Bellata, the pilot, was the guy that made it possible for me to come to Indiana.
Is that when you first met Dr. Pratt?
Yes.
Great. All right, well, let's get to talk a little bit about the 68 season before we move forward to the Boardwalk Bowl. Reflecting back on the 68 season, there are two teams that come to mind. Who would they be, Bob? Bob?
California and Clarion.
Yes. And it's the interaction of those two teams with IUP in 67 and 68 were really significant in how we got to be where we are as far as the opportunity to go to the Boardwalk Bowl. I'm going to give you a quick recap of our association with that, and also recap the two games in 68, then get your comments about those two games in 68. In 1967, Clarion came to Miller Stadium with a 15-game winning streak. They were 10-0 in 1966, and we were undefeated at the time. And we ended up beating them on our field 17-15 in 1967. And then we traveled to Cal later in that season and lost to Cal 27-20, which was our only loss in 1967. Now fast forwarding to 1968, the tables are turned. Now we have to travel to Clarion. We're undefeated, have aspirations for an undefeated season, and I'm sure they would like nothing more than to spoil that aspiration, and we have to travel to Clarion. California, who had beaten us on their field in 67, has to come to our stadium, and I think the next to the last game. I think we played post the last game, and them the next to the last game. So obviously we had the same thought process to get by Clarion, and then wait for Cal to come to us because we owed Cal from 1967. And we sure didn't want them to spoil our opportunity for an undefeated season. So let me just give you a recap of the Clarion game quickly, and then get your comments about that game. We led 3-0 at halftime in Clarion. We had two opportunities to score in the first half. There was a drop pass that took place that could have been a touchdown. And we ended up turning the ball over on downs at the 7-yard line in the first half. So we go in with a 3-0 lead at halftime. At the end of the third quarter, we still had 3 points. Clarion had 13 points. So going into the last 15 minutes of that game, we were down by 10 points. We scored with 10:30 in the third quarter of that game, and you elected to go for a 2-point conversion. So instead of the score being 13-10, it was 13-11 with 10 minutes to go in the game. Now what took place after that was a decision that Clarion probably would have liked to have changed. They were on our 43-yard line. We're down 13-11, and they have a 4th down and 1. And instead of punting, I guess they were looking to drive the knife in us at that point and move on and score and eat up a lot of time and make it a 2-score game. But they ended up throwing a pass that was incomplete. So we take over on the 43-yard line, and then we score. And at that point, then it makes it 18-13 because we had 11 points. We got a touchdown, extra point, made it 18-13. And then they drive down to get to our 36-yard line with 5 minutes and 54 seconds left. Now our season's on the line there. I mean, with 5 minutes to go. They're on our 36-yard line, and we're only ahead by 2 points. Well, luckily, Chuck Hassey, which we haven't talked about yet, but Chuck was a sophomore defensive back for us at that time, and he intercepted a ball on the 16-yard line. Clarion eventually got the ball back with a little over a minute to go, but the defense held them. During that game, we had 4 fumbles and 2 interceptions. Do you recall that game at all, Coach?
I guess I want to forget it. No, it's been a long time, and I've been through a lot of games. But that was a happy game.
Yes, that was a critical game.
Very good, Coach.
Coach Receski, any comments about that game?
Yeah, I recall the game. And I'm going to tell you something. It was a game we never gave up hope on. We had the faith that we were going to do it. This was going to be a matter of when. And we knew if we put our defense in there at the end, we'd come out all right. And that's the way it ended. Our defense was in there at the end. They got the last shot, and we got the win.
Jerry, that's not the game. We didn't take a safety in that game, did we?
No.
No.
That was the other games.
That was
One
the
of
other game,
Clarion
yeah.
game we had
One of the
the
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, the other game, so now we get past Clarion, and of course Cal's coming to town, and they're coming to town with some thoroughbreds on paper, and we're talking about quarterback Petruzzi. He was the 3rd leading passer in the NAIA, and in total offense, California was 10th in the nation in NAIA. They threw well against us down at Cal, and they had a big-name receiver that's coming in. So obviously we had great expectations for that game, and realizing that they stood in the way of our undefeated season. Let me just give you a couple stats from that game and get your comments from it. We beat Cal 41-0 up here. With those type of thoroughbred players coming in to our field. We held Cal to 9 first downs. Net rushing yards was 31 yards. Petruzzi was 12 for 24 with 127 yards. They had a total offense of 158 yards. Only 4 times they crossed the 50-yard line during that game. It was 13-0 at half. And during that game, there was a ton of contributions by offensive and defensive people. Charlie Hassey, who we mentioned recently, had a punt return for a touchdown. Don Rinshoots had a touchdown. Priest and myself had an interception. Bobby Tate had 2 field goals. Dave Smith had 2 touchdowns, 2 long passes called back. One was a touchdown and one was a long pass, both because of penalties. They threw it to him a 3rd time, didn't have a penalty, he caught it. So, what do you remember about that game, Coach?
What I remember is that Dave Smith had a great game. Mm-hmm. We just threw the ball to him every chance we got.
I think he had 15 receptions, I think.
That's right. Well, I do remember.
Yes, you do.
And I think he showed his great skill there. Mm-hmm. You know, Dave had an interesting pro career. You know, we've had very few of our graduates at that time, make it to the NFL. And I think Dave opened the door to a lot of people, in showing the skill that he had. And he was a great athlete, a very gifted athlete.
Jerry, I want to comment on that game because I want to congratulate and commend Coach Receski, Coach Doherty, and so on. And this is the California game. With all, we were pumped for the California game. The coaches did a significant analysis. Coach Receski, Coach Doherty, watching the game films, the California game films, saw that Petruzzi, if he was going to be running, say, out to the right, he would keep his left foot back. If he was going to be going out to the left, he'd put his right foot back. And we study those films, coaches study those films, and we, upon whatever the stance was by Petrucci, if he took that one stance, the left linebacker went. If he took another stance, the right linebacker went. If he did something else, we'd have the middle guard do something. But from that, I mean, it was just the whole game, and the coaches did an outstanding job in doing that prep up for us.
Coach Receski, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah,
It had to be a very satisfying
I
defensive
want to make
win.
a couple of comments about that game. First of all, as most of the guys here know, and the coaches know, California does a tremendous job in their football program. They do a tremendous job in recruiting transfer students.
Oh, yeah.
And these boys from the valley who parents work in the coal mines and the steel mills down there are tough cookies. They go away to these major schools, but when something doesn't go right or they want to come home to take care of the family or something, California goes out and recruits them. And they always had a very strong football program, good players, and they were class football players. We got beat the year before down there. We were coming up against basically the same players. So Doc and myself and watching the films, and one reason we watched the films at night is because of this guy right here. I mean, we had to be in the office. I didn't care if we were sleeping, but we had to be there, okay? We'd watch these films. And we knew to get the jump on this team, we had to find something that they were doing. And the team was a good team. Petrucci was a tremendous quarterback, and we start looking for a little advantage. And we found the advantage. We thought we found the advantage, and we watched the way he lined up every time. And it was a little different with leg balance or leg alignment. So all week, we worked with the defense, that when that right leg was at a certain place, we went right. When that left leg was a certain place, we went left. And we had about 3 or 4 calls. And every time that leg was there, our guys called it out. Everybody knew. Everybody went. And of course, it held up. And what surprised us is they never changed in the second quarter because they couldn't pick up what the heck we were doing. But that was the key to that whole game. Had we gone in there and tried to play them evenly with the horses that they had and with the horses that we had, their horses were much bigger horses. Their horses were well trained. It would have been a tremendous game. Otherwise, we would not have had that blowout that we had because of this little flaw we picked up at quarterback.
Yeah, I can recall there was a lot of times that people were in the backfield disrupting
Right.
Petrucci during that game, and that certainly took him off his game. And we're late in the season now, and we're undefeated. After Cal, we had 1 game left with CW Post. At that point in the season, Coach, can you recall what you were thinking about in relation to postseason play, opportunities for this team for postseason play, realizing that we're in the NAIA, and they had a mini playoff system at that time. I understand four teams went into a national championship game, a semifinals played, I think they said the week after Thanksgiving, and the finals being played on the same day that the Boardwalk Bowl was being played on the 14th. But at that point in the season, between the NAIA and the possibility of, when did you realize that